everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Art of VIII podcast. I'm your host, Janika. I have an exciting conversation today. Today, we are going to be chatting with my lovely friend and dancer here, Miss Mish. Hello, Mish.
Hello.
Welcome to the Art of VIII podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Is this your first podcast?
In like a studio. Yes.
In a studio. How do you feel about that?
It's a little nerve-wracking.
What makes it nerve-wracking?
It feels really official. The mics and.
When have you ever known that Art of VIII did anything that was unofficial?
Good point. No, I'm excited, truly.
That is also awesome. One of the things that I love about spaces like this is that I get to see you outside of the studio. Usually I'm always seeing you all with like leotards, tights, nice little skirts, and you done came up here with some rouge. Okay, you got eyeliner. Is this the normal attire that you wear outside of the class?
It is, yeah.
See, I'm here for it.
Okay.
I just want you to know, and you came on brand too, so I'm here for that as well.
Yep.
Black is my favorite color. Did you know that?
I didn't.
Well, it is. Relax. I just want you to be relaxed for the podcast.
Okay.
One of the things that when I was talking to like the team about what I wanted to do for this podcast, I was like, okay, what's going to be like the title? What are we going to be talking about in relation to our podcast? And I was going on social media like we all do, just scrolling, and I saw a post from you, and your post was in relation to your profession, which I can't wait for you to be able to share more about yourself. But one of your posts, you had on this beautiful black dress, and you were talking about the spaces in between. And I said, oh, that's a word right there. And I want to deep dive into what that means to you and how that applies to you being at Art of VIII. Talk to me about why you even created the post. And before that, let's be clear. Introduce yourself to the people. I'm talking to you as if everyone knows you. Tell everybody about yourself first.
My name is Mishaal, and I have danced for like about 20 years. That sounds like a long time. Full-time, I am a therapist, and I have my own private practice.
Can we talk about that too? Because we were in the DMs talking about you in that private practice, right? And you were talking about the nervousness of going into your private practice and leaving corporate. And you had a few questions there, right, in the DMs. Oh, yeah. I'm like, girl, go for it. Do it. What have you? And that really signifies, obviously, what we mean here at Art of VIII, like the art of new beginnings. And so that's awesome.
Thank you.
I want to say congratulations because you on 2 years at this point, or is it more?
2. I think this is my 3rd year. Yeah. I know. I lose track of time.
That is awesome, Mish.
Thank you.
You're so very welcome. Let's go back, though.
So,
okay,
yeah.
So look, we sidetrack. Go ahead.
So, yes, I wrote that post because, and I feel like you could relate to this, I'm a therapist, but I'm also a business owner.
Yes.
And I don't have coworkers. This isn't stuff I could talk to my clients about. And so sometimes it's like you have moments in your career or moments during the week where you're like, oh my gosh, I had an epiphany, or this moved me, and I don't always have the community space to share about it. So I take it to my 30 followers on Instagram who will read what I have to say. And I don't know, writing is just also a creative outlet for me sometimes. And something that I had been sitting with was just how my career as a therapist is not one thing or another. It's not all fulfilling. It's also depressing sometimes. It's also exhausting, but then it's also energizing. And it's hard sometimes to wrap your mind around it because I feel like our brains want to understand it as one thing.
Right.
And so I think I was just sitting with that, when I wrote that post of how it's all of the things. And yeah, my history with dance has been very similar, where it's been draining and in some ways maybe not the healthiest, but then in a lot of ways has given me so much life and has helped me in every area of life too. So it's all of the things.
That's so deep and so necessary to have as a conversation as an artist, to be able to just lean in to the journey itself, because it's not always roses, right? There's this understanding that dance is my joy, or dance is like my ministry, some people say, like all of those things. But it also can be a sense of intimidation. It can bring back hard feelings. It can bring self-doubt. It can bring a lot of things, like it can make people feel like inferior, because there's a lot of comparison in the dance studio, particularly if you're coming later to dance, right? And now all of a sudden you have reasons why you don't feel like you want to step into the dance room, because you are either too old, or you're not the size you want to be, or you're not as flexible, or you feel like you have two left feet type of situation, right? And so can you talk to us about being in between those spaces where you're not where you want to be, but you're not where you used to be?
Yeah. So I have been in a lot of different types of dance spaces. The classroom, I've also performed, I've competed, and I think that dance has meant different things to me at different times. So I did start training pretty late in life. I was 14, which doesn't sound old, but in the dance world, there were 8-year-olds who had already surpassed me in so many ways, you know?
Right.
And so when I was 14, I started training in jazz. I had a little bit of ballet, a little bit of tap, but it was mostly jazz. And I was thinking about this earlier, that I really only trained for maybe 1 or 2 years before I started performing for my high school. And then I joined a competition team outside of high school. And then in my 20s, I was doing it professionally in different spaces. But I really only had like a short amount of time of training. And it was jazz, which is more so geared, I think, around performing.
Right.
And growing up, I have heard this phrase so many times. The phrase is, I don't care how you get there, just get there. Or I don't care what you have to do to make it work, but make it work. That, I can't tell you how many times I've heard that, and not trying to shade any coaches or dance instructors, but that was what I learned. And it helped me be a good performer. It helped me land gigs when I got older. But I think I learned so early on that it did not matter what I had to do. It didn't matter how harmful something could be for my body, or the demands of something, that whatever I needed to do, I had to make it work. And that is something that unfortunately applied to everything in my life. Like in therapy, we talk about how everything's connected.
Right.
So where you're at physically is also going to directly affect where you're at emotionally, mentally. And so all of this to say, for me, in different dance spaces, that was the heart behind it, was I've got to be perfect. It does not matter what space I am in. I have to be this, this, and this.
Got it.
And like I said, it was positive in a lot of ways, but it was not sustainable. And I think I dealt with insecurities in my professional career by following that. You know, there were people who are also my friends who are professional dancers that did have the opportunity to start training when they were 3 or 4. And I was great at like doing whatever I needed to do to share a stage with them, you know? And it wasn't really until last year that I realized how I was treating myself wasn't okay. As much as I love dancing, my well-being is not an acceptable price to pay to be able to do it.
Right.
And so I don't know if that answered your question.
It did. It definitely answered. It definitely answered my question. Thank you for that. I'm interested in knowing, with your journey of having this love-hate relationship with dance, right? But feeling like it's a necessity for you, obviously, in
Yeah.
some way, shape, or form. What brought you to Art of Eight?
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, I've dipped in and out of dance classes here and there, like for fun, stress relief, catch up with my friends. But I think last year, like I was saying, I realized, oh my gosh, I am not being kind to myself to do this thing that I really love to do. And I realized that I wanted dance to be like an extension of love for myself. Like I want it to come from me treating myself well. And so I wanted to be very picky about going to a studio where that's supported. And that's unfortunately not every studio. You know, some of them are still on that, like, do what you got to do.
Right.
And I wanted to stay away from that. And so I felt like I got that at Art of Eight, where I could learn how to dance or relearn or unlearn some bad habits. And I could learn how to do that while also caring for my body and like my mental health too.
Right.
And so it felt safe. It feels safe. And that was probably the biggest thing. Going into it, I think I went into Art of Eight more so like a means to an end. Like I need more ballet technique. I've got dance injuries. I need to like, you know, really brush up on stuff. But the more time I spent in the studio, it became deeper for me. And yeah, I do feel like my well-being matters in that space.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I'd like to, with that being said, I want to know if there's someone watching, which we have our wonderful audience watching. Look, let me do a plug. If you're liking this, go ahead and hit that like button, the subscribe button. And if you want to be a part of our Patreon community, go ahead and join us at patreon.com/artofeight.com. We would love to see you there for exclusive content and some behind the scenes stuff. But regardless of that, I got a question for you, Mish.
Yes.
What would you say to the dancer who also has had the same journey as you, right? Who is contemplating if they want to go back into the studio or not? What would you say to them?
That it's not too late, even when you are in your 30s, that it is not too late. If there is an age limitation that you're putting on yourself, you're doing that. And if you are given the chance to do it, like why wouldn't you? You know, there are people who don't have access to going to a studio.
Right.
There are people who have physical challenges and limitations that make it impossible for them to. So if you can and you want to, get out of your head. And that there's a space for you there. You know, I think regardless of your skills and your training, you bring something to the table that is needed. And so, yeah, run with that.
That's great advice. That's very, very great advice. Last question I think I have for you is, what's the one thing you feel like you're still working on as a dancer? I said that was my last question. That's not true. That's not true. I have that question, and I got one more after that.
Okay.
Okay.
Something I'm still working through as a dancer.
Yes.
I think it is continuing to build that relationship between how am I doing, how am I feeling, and, you know, where do I need to grow as a dancer? Because it has been very natural for me to compare my journey to so many different things, or so many different dancers. And I think I have been learning that I will be the most fulfilled when I'm doing something that aligns with where I'm at in life and what is good for me, not what's good for so-and-so person.
Right.
And so I think I'm still learning to be okay with that it might mean I'm not auditioning for stuff for a while. Or it might mean that I won't dance in certain spaces again, ever again, because they weren't great for my mental health. And that's hard. I think there's grief associated with that. So yeah, that's probably something I'm still working through.
That is an honest answer, and I think a lot of people would agree with that sentiment. And thank you for sharing that, because now I know what to work on with you as we dance together at the studio.
Yeah.
That's great to know. The last question I have, and I feel like this might be the question I'm going to ask every student that shares this space with me. I want to know, do you consider yourself a dancer?
That's a good question. That is such a good question.
I know.
I need to sit with that. Wow. I do.
Okay.
Yeah. But I don't think I would have said that just a couple years ago.
Really, what would you have said instead?
I like to dance, and sometimes I get to do it professionally, but yeah, I don't think I would have.
Interesting, because in your mind, what defines a dancer?
Probably someone that has had more training, someone that has a stronger foundation in ballet. I don't know why that has just been so grilled into my brain.
Right.
And then even in different spaces in the dance world, sometimes you're not seen as a legitimate dancer if you don't have those things.
Right.
So yeah, I feel like having started so late, it's like no matter who I danced for or what I did.
Or even getting a paycheck.
A paycheck for it, right. Yeah, I don't think I really considered myself a dancer.
But why has that changed now? You said you would not have said that, but you say it now. How can you stand confidently or sit confidently and say, I'm a dancer today? What transition occurred?
Well, one, I go to the studio where they are constantly calling you a dancer.
Yes, very
that
true.
definitely was one thing. I remember when I first came to the studio, I wasn't used to that. So that was one part of it. And then the other part of it, I think my relationship with myself has transformed so much in the last year. And that has affected every area of my life. And I didn't expect that to happen. But I stopped putting these unrealistic expectations on myself. I started seeing myself like I would see a friend.
Right.
And I think I stepped more into my identity as like who I am and not who I am constantly trying to be or striving to be. But it's like, no, I am these things already. So I have learned to just see myself so much differently. I was mean to myself. I didn't even know it. But yeah.
So you are a dancer now, right?
I am a dancer.
Yes, I'm here for it. Okay, so do you have a question for me?